Welcome, everyone. Just making sure everything's in order before we get started. Alright, I think we're good for now. Looks like the YouTube live stream is up. I think we're all good to go. So, for today, I think I ended up wanting to do like a catch up, I suppose, on the various things that I'm keeping in mind. I could have generated an outline for today that was specifically catered to a topic. Decided against that. In truth, it's been a little while since I've uh, was actually able to come up with. Well, yeah, I didn't have like a passion topic for this week, so I figured me trying to generate something at three o'clock this afternoon, so pretty much an hour ago, would have been pretty meaningless. Even though there are like a couple things that I would like to talk about, I just figured that today would probably be more meaningful if I didn't try and talk out of my ass through through a specific outline for today. So instead, I had a bunch of various topics that I wanted to go over, and I think next week, unless if like a different speaker had like something they wanted to talk about for this week, I might just instead shoot for something a little more deep. I think next week I might shoot for finding meaning as like the outline or like the theme of the next podcast. So we'll see how that goes. And I think finding meaning is definitely something everyone just, well, it's not that everyone goes through, but it's like some people are hit with that question of like, what if I'm not finding meaning throughout my life, where can I go find it? And I think having like steps to go about finding that is not only something that a mental health professional would probably guide you through, because I think that's more of an inward question than it is like something that you go find out in the world. No, I think you could. I think the inward is also reflective of the outward in that situation. So I think through outward consumption and production acts, you can find inward meaning. But we'll get into that probably next week. But just keeping that on like in the back of everyone's mind throughout this podcast for today. Even though this one might not go, this one may not be structured to have anything in particular. But next week I think we'll go back into something kind of depth or deep. I guess a couple other notes. We have two new members to the Healthy Dialogue community. Two of which, okay, I'm going to be honest here. Most of the people that are within the community Discord are people that I've bonded with over a guys dating app, but really I've just found some really significant people in my life through that app in particular. So they're all intellectual people, super smart. I wouldn't trade out anyone. I think they're very interesting to talk to, and they're great people. So I think if any of them wanted to speak with each other, or if any future audience listeners wanted to speak with them, I think any definitely please join the Discord, because I think I'm also running out of like another worry that I have in terms of the brand itself is that it's been like more of like on the back of my mind more than it is like on the front. Whereas like before, I think starting out, I was looking forward to getting like a podcast up and running. And that's not to say that I'm not like still passionate about it. It's like I have other responsibilities that are equally persisting to the front of the line. So as much as I want to keep this thing going, I don't always have the time to spend for it. But I was hoping that this would end up being more of like a community thing than it was like a myself only kind of deal. In truth, I really wanted this to be like a community driven content. Like finding people who can also further the dialogue of the self-reflective, or really any topic for that matter. I usually tend to generate dialogue for self-improvement, mental health, um, like workout, social interactions, since I have like some level of analysis of when I engage in those environments. So I think I have like a different perspective than most other people when they're face value trying to interact in the conversation, whereas I'm like more of an analysis role of that conversation itself and those people engaged in it. It's like a pretty inhumane inhumane way of going about those environments, but I think that's the perspective I can bring to other people. And I think it tends to be more accurate than that. So, anyhow, for today, I figured we'd probably end up doing like podcast material like this at some point where we just babble on like a bunch of random stuff. And that's not to say that it should be like disregarded as content. I think there's meaningful stuff in here that gauges the mindset of I guess myself and whoever else wanted to speak on behalf of this, or maybe even like rile the brains of you guys, the audience members. There's a couple interesting things in here, but we'll see. Instead of like a structured outline for today, I just have like a couple of bullet points of different topics that I wanted to like briefly touch base on. So, in terms of like time for this podcast, I imagine it's like nowhere beyond like 30 minutes. I think 30 minutes is probably the upper bound here. Um, but yeah, we can talk about like how COVID is running rampant at this time. It really sucks just being in a pandemic for that much longer. It tested my pace. Well, not actually. Like as much as a homebody as I am, it's not like I'm necessarily doing so great as a homebody operating home all the time. It's been what, like around like 2 years now, where it's just been at home. What kind of growth could I have gone through if I wasn't just at home all the time? I mean, that's not to say that I haven't grown as a person at all, like since COVID started, but wow. Imagine all those people that I could have met, all those interactions I could have had, all those new job opportunities, all those responsibilities that I could have had given a different environment, given the non-COVID environment. Oh boy. Part of me thinks that that'd be more desirable, but in the end, I think I'm very thankful for the experience that COVID has also given me. I think that'd be also, yeah. I think by trying to put down the idea that like COVID was such a bad existence upon the COVID experience was such a bad time for everyone. I don't think that's necessarily the case for myself. But now I'm feeling the need to go back out and socialize. I was taking like my Myers-Briggs personality test or whatever, which I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a huge fan of those associations with the general test, but was saying I was introverted, and at some points in time I also scored like an extroverted mark, so I think I fluctuate between the two. Sometimes my extroverted side really needs to get out there and just do stuff. Like I want to be free to go do whatever the fuck I want sometimes. Just get out of the house because I'm sick of this place. Um, and then there's other times where it's like, I'm pretty comfortable here. I'll just do what I want. I'm sure everyone goes through different phases at different, extremities of those two feelings, but COVID, COVID, COVID by Donald Trump. Got to stay within your walls. Mask yourself up. It's not a great time. I can tell you that. I also like part of the COVID restrictions also makes me like I want to go travel like at the moment. I think there's places that I just want to I think going like piggybacking off of the get out of the house mentality, I think I also just want to go somewhere far. Actually take like a trip for myself. I think I haven't taken a trip for myself at all. Like I've done it for like romantic partners in the past, but it's not like I've ever like gone on vacation for myself. I think most of the times where I've been offered like a vacation setting, it's usually with the family. And now since I've like generated some money for myself and quite a bit, I could probably travel out as like traveling now is it's not like it's inexpensive, but it's definitely affordable with the kind of money that I'm currently making. So I think in addition to like the affordable portion of it, I think just knowing that I kind of need a break and that it's now like an option is something that I want to go pursue. I've got I've got a friend in New York that I currently want to go visit. That'd be pretty fun. I've never been to New York before, so and it's gonna be like kind of close to downtown. Yeah, that sounds great. Travel like down to California, maybe even go to some middle states too. Really wouldn't know which middle states I'd go to. Maybe go visit my sister in Arizona. When I was offered this option to go on a trip from my parents, like before, like I had a 2 week break. I think between like summer and fall quarter, I was asked if I wanted to go and travel to see my sister in Arizona. I turned it down. I didn't think I had any need to go visit her. I still don't think I do, but at least I'd be out of the house. I guess the feeling of trying to get out is like coming 3 months later. So, over this past week, I had an interview with T-Mobile. So the company I'm working for, offered for an interview. Um, and I don't know how much of the interview I can even talk about. So I don't think I can really I don't think I can go into too much of the specifics, but I will tell you I did not have a good time. I think I think when you're generating solutions as like a software developer or like anyone really, if you're an engineer, I don't know like how the process goes for everyone else, but from what my father told me, since he's an electrical engineer, they pretty much just go over your it's pretty much a behavioral interview and without like the technical side if you're anything but or like maybe they'll ask like a couple specific questions from about your field, but for the most part they don't really ask you anything beyond the behavioral questions. And then there's software engineers where they ask you to implement and they pretty much have you go through a whole coding challenge. uh Man, I wish. I did really well on the behavioral, I thought, anyways. And then came like the technical portion, and that just sucked. Oops. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna go into too many details about that, but man, software development or like technical interviews are just they're so different from what you would do day to day. Like my day to day life as a intern, software intern is much different than what like the whole content that you were being asked for during the technical interview is just so different. Like half the concepts don't really apply until like they actually matter. And then on top of that, the whole process is timed. So you're pretty much in a super stress environment. It's not oh man. Usually I don't do too bad at interviews, but that one killed me. That one killed my mood pretty bad for for a lot of the week. Ooh, this was a different topic that I wanted to go over, but I might actually save this as like a topic for a podcast, but it's showing love. I was trying to look over the different podcast topics that I've had before. I don't know if that was one of them. I feel like since a lot of these ideas intertwine with each other most of the time, it's hard to know if like generating a topic like that would have been meaningful in terms of not overlapping things I've already said. I mean, it would be nice if other people would also be here, but you know, that do be me. I'm not. I haven't made it as much of a inviting place for other speakers to come up here and you know be motivated to say their pieces on the different perspectives of or different topics of life. Maybe I delegate responsibility, but then that's not even. I don't even think that's a good way to go about it. I think if people want to just be here, then they want to be here, and I'd be super honored if people did. But you know, I do got to make it worth it for them. But yeah, that should be that's showing love should be like a next topic that we should have. That and dealing with COVID. I think we could also do like a segment on that. The next bullet point, new members. I've already talked about the two. Two wonderful people. Very insightful, both of them. I already talked about the Myers-Briggs test. Future content worries. Okay. I feel like I feel like the meaningful content that I bring is almost in parallel to the growth of my own character. But I don't feel like I've grown as a character. So does that mean that I don't have content to give out? Or maybe that's just all in my head, you know? Like what kind of content do I want to bring to the Healthy Dialogue podcast, right? Should it be like a new and improved Spencer like every time? Like how do other content creators generate content like that? Maybe it's best if I just take a step back and like just let myself grow for a little bit, like take like a month or two off and start generating content again. Hmm, who knows? Maybe I've just exhausted the different ideas that I have and maybe I just need to go back and like go through them again at a different date. Maybe like come along with some new passions of mine in the future. Hmm. What I just don't want to be doing though is generating content just to generate content, which almost feels like this episode. Now that I think about it, but um, no, I still think there could be meaning from some of the things that we talked about here. There is like representation to be had over people who are sick of the COVID restrictions, and it's not that like anyone can do anything about it. It's just an unfortunate reality that we're all living in. A different thing that I wanted to that could perhaps be an episode as well is checking in with friends. And one thing that's also been on the back of my mind is how do I reach out to people who matter to me? How do I reevaluate who matters to me? Which friends are worthwhile on checking in with? Is that even a question or should you just go do it? Yeah, what's the best answer for that? I don't know either. I could talk about having a talk about like all the the different social interactions that I could have, the social environments that I had when I was working 3 jobs. Pretty much being a punching bag for the company, for the different companies that I worked for. But that's not actually true for one of them. One of them I was a teaching assistant for the University of Washington's coding boot camp. So I was hired on there to help other students go through the full stack web development journey at a boot camp style institution and just interact with students so that they had the best learning environment that they could. Ugh, what a time. You meet like some really cool people. Like there's so many cool people everywhere and it just sucks knowing that like you don't get the same environment now. You really like take that for granted until you until it like goes away. A better life. This was a weird bullet point that I made. It's like visioning a better life. What could I have possibly meant by that? If you think about visioning a better life, what does that look like? Is that like an achievable better life, or is that like a knowing condition versus like another condition, living condition versus a different living condition? Visioning the kinds of experiences that you could go do, but you just don't. How helpful is that to even be visioning a better life? Isn't it better to just go do it? If you want to go do something, why do you have to be so meta about it? Trying to ask yourself if the complications that you're thinking about are worth it. Hmm. Interesting question, Spencer. Too many questions. Anyhow, I was going to keep it brief. I think I'm going to call it there, though. Thank you guys for listening. Again, I'd much appreciate if any outside listener would join the Discord as well. But I am also hesitant to even say that because I don't think I made the active changes necessary to keep the Discord community engaged in a way that I want them to be engaged. I think I've interacted with it a bit of time, but probably not enough. So I've like posted a bunch of different videos or content, asked some questions out to members, and I've gotten like some responses back from various people, including speakers. So, maybe I just need to keep interacting with it in the way that I want it to be interacted with, and I think people will start using it in that way. So, I think I've done a start, but I definitely have a long ways to go with keeping that standard up there. Anyhow, again, thank you guys for being here. I'll see you guys next week with one of those two different topics.